day. Before we start, I request the Swami sir to kindly introduce our resource speaker, and we begin with a minute's silence for the departed soul, Sri G. Rangarao. Swami sir, over to you.
Before we introduce this, just announce for the 1 minute prayer and then we introduce our guest, please. We lost the former director of Bharat Scouts and Guides, who is a Bronze Wolf awardee and the first professional of Bharat Scouts and Guides who received the coveted award. Contributed extensively to growth of scouting in India from mid-80s and a hardcore professional scouter who groom a lot of young professionals to reach higher levels of scouting guiding in India, and also extensively contributed to training as a member of the World Training Committee, and also represented the Bharat Scouts and Guides in various Asia Pacific regional forums. On his memory, we pray and we stand in silence for a moment.
Om Shanti.
Good evening to all. We are happy to have the Chief Commissioner of Singapore Scouts Association as the resource speaker for today's webinar on adult in scouting. A fascinating personality whom we met at our various occasions, especially when we had the Asia Pacific membership growth meet in Korea. It was very nice of him to have his ideas presented to the entire team on various aspects of growth. Today, we have with us him to present on the adulting scouting concept. The adults in scouting concept covers the entire life cycle of a person as an adult leader in the movement. This has been a debated subject in most of the Asian countries, as certain terminologies in adult in scouting was not well received among some seniors, those who contributed extensively to scouting. However, we need to learn that this concept of adult in scouting is something which helps us to have various roles in the organization and contribute as best as we can. So on behalf of Bara Scouts and Guides, our Chief Commissioner Dr. K.K. Khandelwal and Director Bara Scouts and Guides Mr. Rajkumar Kaushik, we welcome you, sir, to this webinar. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Brother Krishna Swami. Yes, yeah, hi. Welcome everybody. Thank you all for having me here. I hope that what we're gonna go through will open up some new topics of discussion on your end, and see that AIS is not just about training, and how this AIS actually will help to contribute on membership growth. Madhu, can I share the screen?
Yes, Chief, you can share the screen.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a little bit about myself. My name is Antong Sharudin Rahmat. I'm currently the Chief Commissioner of Singapore Scouts. I'm also a leader trainer. Okay, I'm also one of the member of the consultant team. Currently, I'm a chairman of AIS subcommittee, and also I'm a chairman of ASEAN Scout Association for Regional Cooperation, or ASAC for short, which is quite similar to the what you have in your sub-region, which is the South Asia. All right, so that's me. I hope I can meet everybody. I only can see pictures for now. Okay, so what we want to do now is to explain to you why we are here this evening. Basically, it's what the outcome of this webinar. All right, so by the end of this session, we hope that everyone understand what is the AIS policy, in particular the life cycle of the adult in scouting. The other thing is the important factors to keep the adults, or so-called retention, and how they can stay active and committed to their task. And lastly, how important is this ingredient, AIS, in contributing to the growth of membership. All right. Now, before we start, it's a simple icebreaker. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Okay, I'll make it 4 minutes for you to answer this question on the chat. All right. So I would expect to see the same number of answers as to the number of participants. So this is an icebreaker. Yeah, so go ahead and do it now. All right. You have 4 minutes. Okay, let's check on the chat. How many people have answered already? Okay. All right, so honestly, I won't know the answer because I think Madhu will help me later to find out who has given the right answers and who's not. I'm sorry about that because I'm not familiar with your region. I only know the national, right? But what's important in this icebreaker is to know who are the people that is involved, who can help you in answering all these questions after this session, and how to get in touch with them. Because you have your region and you have your national, and I think it's important that you know who they are. And most importantly is you need to be able to get access to this policy. Not the WASM one. I think the WASM one, you can download it from online from the website, but your national AIS policy, or for that matter, any other policy for your Bharat Scout and Guides. All right. Okay. So what I'm gonna do now to start, before we start the actual proper of the AIS, to explain what is AIS, I want to actually share with you the history of AIS, how it come about. And this is a speed, actually it's a very speed question, like a speed quiz. So what I'd like you to do now is to answer the first one, all right? This one, the first one, when did BP conducted the first two courses? Anybody? All right, you can answer it in the chat, all right? So we can see how many of you do know or remember. I'm sure this is something that most of you already went through, but probably forgotten. It's just a refresher. So when did BP conducted the first two courses? Which year? In which year? The answer is 1911, 1912. We were founded in 1910, right? So the next one is, when is the first formal training course in Gilwell? I think there's a lot of trainer here, right? That was in 1919, okay? The next thing is, Cub Scout training started in which year? It's in 1922. And what about the rover training? When did it started? Anyone has any idea? It's in 1927. Now, when all these when all these scouters attended these courses, and when upon completion, what were they given as recognition? I think this is the most easiest question, right? So what they were given is the 2 beads, right? The 2 beads, right? Which is originally from the Dini Zulu necklace and on a leather thong. So, and this tradition has been carried till today. I am sure you are very aware that everybody who finished the basic wood badge course will receive the 2 beads. Now I'm going to reverse again. Just now I asked you for the dates. Now I'm going to ask you what took place during this period. Right, from 1920 to 1947, what happened in scouting? Anyone remember? So basically, training was not coordinated, right? Because it just started, everybody was doing their own thing. So every scout troop, every level are all doing their own thing. So we don't know whether it's right or wrong. The members are growing, right? But training was not coordinated. So there was no established scheme or training for leaders as well. All right, they was only concentrated on the boys, and the guide that was used was the Scouting for Boys. That was the book from Lord Baden-Powell, right? Next thing, in 1956, there was a first attempt to centralize training, right? This was called the ITTC, or the International Training of Trainers course, right? I think that was very long. That was the first attempt, all right? And then what happened is in 1961, right? The World Training Committee was established. Now, what happened is they recommend the appointment of National Training Commissioner, right? So that was happened in 1961, right? In 1969, at the 22nd World Scout Conference in Helsinki, guess what? The World Training Policy was introduced. And it was very simple. It was based on it was based on flexibility. So, what happened is they don't want to make it too rigid, because it's difficult for people to comply. So it's very flexible, and NSO was told to develop their own training scheme. All right, and so what happened? That is when the training team started. The national training team started in every NSO. That was then. Then in 1997, right? NSO entrusted with training the trainers, and the International Training Handbook was published. And the World Scout Bureau and regions to assist national Scout organization in implementing the training policy. So at the 26th World Conference in Montreal, the Constitution of WOSM defined Scouting as a movement for young people, right? So the next thing is, in 1988, in Melbourne, what happened? At this World Scout Conference, 6 major issues were identified, which are obstacles to development of scouting in many parts of the world. 6 was identified, and the adult leadership was in number 3. Okay, so they identify many things, right? But the third important thing is adult leadership. What do they mean by this adult leadership? So basically, they identified that there was lack of effective leadership. All right, and why is that so? Because it's difficult to find people with the right traits. And then I'm sure all of you are aware of what is SKA, all right? Skill, knowledge, and attitude. At the same time, experience. What kind of experiences are they supposed to acquire, all right? Now we all talk about learning by doing to gain experiences, but during those days, at that time, they have no idea, you know, what kind of experience that the leaders need to have. Also, they have issues of the tenure of appointment. That means how long does a leader stay as a leader, or do they stay until 70, 90, 80 years old? And what do they do? You know, do they do the same thing every day? So that was a few other issues. All right. So we will move on next. In 1990, now that's quite recent. Anyone attended the 1990 World Scout Conference in Paris? No one? Okay, so basically AIS was introduced. It provides guidelines, right, to the life cycle of adults in scouting. So basically it's the guideline, it was broken down into 3 phases. So how they derive into these 3 phases is basically, if you look at it, the AIS is basically a framework of managing HR. Just like in any company you work, you have a human resource department. So AIS is part of human resource, right? Because human resource does the hiring, they does the reward, and of course, when you leave, you also have to sign the letter, right? All from HR, right? So the next thing is, it has to be a systematic approach. You have to be organized, right? And the third thing is, it's a strategic approach. Why? Because we need to make sure that you do it for a reason and a cause. There must be a purpose. So that's why it has to be a strategic approach. And lastly, also we need to have the concept to be flexible, not only based on needs or on context of individual, but also because we need to take into consideration that different countries have different tradition and customs, and it varies a lot, you know. So like what happened in the Europe or US might not be applicable in Asia, you know. So we need to be flexible in certain things. So that's why it's called a guideline or a framework. It's not something that you must do exactly as it is. All right. So at this World Scout Conference in Paris, they adopted the principles of AIS. And in 1993, all right, in Bangkok World Scout Conference, I see everybody getting excited. I think some of you have attended, all right? So if you are familiar, there is a what you call World Adult Resource Policy was formulated, right? And what it did was it modified the World Training Policy, and is responsible, the responsibility of NSO to support by region and the World Scout Bureau. So it's like what we are doing now. We are being supported by the region, and of course, also by the World WOSM. Right. So inevitably, AIS not only a principle, it became a policy. So, based on what we mentioned just now, this is how it looks like, all right, when we first started. It has 3 phases, as you can see. The first phase is acquisition of adults. Second phase is integration.
Chief, we are not able to see your screen.
Is it? What's
Yeah,
wrong with my screen?
It's all just on the first slide.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I stop share and then I go back again, all right?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Can you see now?
Oh, yes, we can see it now.
Did you see this screen just now?
Just now, yes.
Okay, okay. So we're on the right screen.
Yeah.
All right, then I can continue. Okay, this is what I was referring to. We have the 3 phases, all right? This was the first one. Basically, it was a very, it actually addressed the issues that we had, right? First is the acquisition of adults. So basically, it's very straightforward, like human resource. You have recruitment and selection based on the needs of assessment, right? Of course, then you have mutual agreement, you agree, like in any company, you sign a contract, and then you start your appointment, right? And then in phase 2 is where you integrate, and then you have your training and support. So basically, a lot of emphasis was on training. That's why training at that time became a major focus, because every leaders have to be trained, right? And then of course, after that, they will have to perform at the unit level or in operations. And of course, they will be given support from the region or from the national in getting their work done or their tasks completed. Right, so it's very simple at that time. And then the phase 3 is where the management of AIS within a flexible system. All right, so I think we have to be very honest, right? While we have this phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, but many people neglect the phase 3, right? Because it become very automatic, right? You assume that you become a leader or a scouter, and you continue doing until there is something wrong, or you are being told that you get a higher appointment, or you're told to leave, right? So it was the guidelines are here, but then again, not many people really focus on the phase 3. Phase 1, yes. Phase 2, but not much on phase 3. Okay, so this is how it looks like in the when we first started the life cycle of adults in scouting. Moving on. So this is revised, I think, in after that. All right. Again, we still have the 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. All right. Except that it's a bit neater now, a bit clearer, because it actually clearly explained to you, in the acquisition for adults, actually what is you are looking for, the ideal profile and all that. Sorry. Okay, so it's just actually define a bit more clearer on the acquisition part, and there's not really much on the agreement appointment. It's a bit the same. On the phase, they have the integration, where they feel that every leader need to be like what we always do in training. We always have an icebreaker. So integration is to get them to mix and gel, so that, you know, they feel at home. All right. Of course, the next three things in the phase 2 is still the same, right? Training, activities, and support. So basically, they get trained. After that, the leaders will conduct the normal responsibility, the activities, and then if they need support, they know who to look for. Maybe the resource commissioner, or, you know, the training commissioner. So, but what happened is they try to start something here. What I mean by they try to start something here is they try to come up with appraisal, like how you have it in companies, right? Where you tell the person whether they're doing well, and then, you know, so that the leader knows that, you know, what are the areas he needs to improve on or be better, not only as a scout, but perhaps as a person, right? And he will help out not only in scouting, but also in his career. All right. So that was the phase that we tried to emphasize here. All right. Then, of course, the rest of the other three is the same: the reassignment, retirement, and renewal. Okay, so basically, it's just being tidy up from the first one, so that it's a bit more clearer. So this is being revised in 2011. Imagine, from the time we started, that was in 1993, and all the way until 20 years. It was quite long before it was being reviewed, right? So the next thing is what we have today. This was revised in 2018, which is not very long ago. So we changed from acquisition or acquiring leaders, we change it to recruitment, all right? The next thing is, in underperformance is the same thing. We have the in-service support, we have operation and training. But you notice that later I'll explain to you in detail what is the difference. And the last part is the decision for the future. Now, one thing that was not in the other two previous cycles that you saw just now is this recognition. All right. They feel, or rather we feel today, that people will stay longer if they're treated nice. Not necessarily if they are not nice, you tell them they are nice, but, you know, it's nice to say thank yous, you know, and simple thank you is good enough. But of course, if you can reward them for what they've done, is even better. So let me go back again, like what I was telling you just now in recruitment. So same thing, we look at the assessment of needs. What do you mean by assessment of needs? Now, if you look at the Scouts and the Cub Scouts, you have 6s, right? So the ratio is 6 in a pack. I mean 6 in a group, right? And then when you move on to Scouts, you have a patrol, and normally patrol consists of 8 people, right? And BP has already mentioned before that scouting is not something like you have 200 in a group, in a troop, right? It's too big for one person to manage. So there is an ideal number for one leader, the ratio for one leader to the number of boys or girls, boys and girls, right? So ideally, for us in Singapore, we try to make it 1:10. All right. Why 1:10? It's because we realize that scouting is a non-formal way of education. So you have to get very personal, meaning you need to know the individual, not just the name, but you need to know the character, you need to study, and they develop differently. All right. So it's not like how formal or academic education is all about. Like everybody have to try their best and score full marks. Score 10 upon 10 or 100 upon 100. In scouting, it's not like that, all right? All the skills and all those things that we do, right? Sometimes the boy can only achieve 6, the highest, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad boy or he's not a good citizen, right? That doesn't define him as in terms of character. So that's why when you talk about non-formal education, you can develop the person's character to be a good citizen, and he doesn't have to score 10 upon 10 in all those other things. And also, scouting is very different from formal education because the boy will learn and the girl, or even the leaders, will learn at their own pace, right? I believe that not everybody is not clever, right? I'm sure some people are being labeled as very smart or clever because they can pick up things very fast. But there are some people who still can do it, only thing they learn much slower, right? So assessment of needs here is very important because you need to determine the ratio, right? So maybe I can understand in Barak Scout and Guides because of the huge population, it's more difficult to get leaders. So maybe your ratio could be 1 leader to 20 boys and girls. I don't know. So that's why the flexibility is there, but you need to find the ratio and the cost. So when you work on the assessment of needs, there's something that you can look back and calculate, and not right now you just plug the figure from the air. I need 1,000 leaders based on what, right? So they must be based on the needs. So how do you calculate needs? All right. So next we move on is attraction and selection. So last time we used to call it recruitment, right? We don't care. We just bring everybody in, and sometimes you have the wrong person, right? It's a good practice if the NSO can screen the people. In Singapore, we are very small, so we are able to do that. So when the leaders apply to join Scout, we have to screen them. Like there's national screening. That means you go the police and they check whether you have criminal record and things like that. All right. So that's what we do. And then after the attraction and selection, all right, you have integration. Right? Why this is important? If you notice, the integration now is before the mutual agreement, right? If you see these two, now it's different. The last 2 slides, if you see the diagram, it's different. The integration is after the mutual agreement, but now it's the other way around. Let me tell you why. It's simple because in most companies today, they have what you call on-the-job evaluation. So what does this on-the-job evaluation do? So the company or the scouts will evaluate the candidate, whether he's suitable to be a leader. At the same time, that candidate will evaluate Scout, whether scouting is for me, right? So it works both ways, not just one-way evaluation. So that's why we have integration for them to see whether is this what they understand and they want to be in. So when that comes to a mutual, right, they know they want to join the Scout and the Scout also wants them, then you become a mutual agreement, all right? So after the mutual agreement, of course, there will be appointment, right, where you have most countries will have simple ceremony to have investiture, all right? And then you have induction, all right? The induction is very important because long time ago, leaders do not know a lot of history about scouting, and besides just a history, they don't even know a lot of policies, procedures and protocols. So I think induction is very important to make sure that they understand. Now, when you go to performance, if you notice again, it's different. The operation is in the center. The focus in operation. What is operation? Operation is basically what the scout leader do. When he's given a task, appointment, or area of responsibility, those are operations. Like if you are in charge of Cub Scout, you're running a troop, right? That is your job, that is your operation. Some might be having given other assignments, that is operation. So basically, what happened is, it's very important for them to successfully perform their responsibility properly. they need support. First thing they need is they need to be trained, right? So only after they train, then they will understand and they can perform. But just training alone is not enough, because they need other resources. They need help, like, where to get all the hardware, software, all the other resources. So that's where the in-service support comes in. So I'm sure in your NSO, you have other different departments, right? So like, for example, communication department, when you want to, disseminate information, you go to the communication to help you out, right? How to disseminate, who are the target audience, and how to do it, So this is what it meant. I hope I explained to you clearly. So the whole thing is about the whole operation itself, and you need support to get it done, and you need to be trained. Now, we believe that every scout deserves a trained leader, all right? So from here, after this, then it is advisable that there is a performance management. Some countries, very advanced, they do their performance management yearly, meaning it's a form of appraisal, all right? So appraisal might not be very formal, as in, forms, but it can be a non-formal where you can sit down and talk and agree. So there must be a performance management. After the performance management, then you have to go and you have to make a decision whether this person will be renewed. That means he will continue, all right? Or he's old enough, or he's tired, or he have other responsibility, he wants to retire, all right? Retirement doesn't mean he has to be very old. Young people also can retire for various reasons. And then the third one is, maybe it can be reassignment, right? What do you mean by reassignment? Like, for example, now I'm doing training. After doing training for 10 years, I think I want to move on to program, right? So that can be reassigned. Or maybe after 5 years, I find that I want to try communication. So basically, it's part of self-development as well. So it's good that you move around, all right? So this is what happened at the end of it. Whether you are reassigned or you're renewed, you will go back to the same thing again, right? So because sometimes you need to, if you are reassigned, you might have to go back to induction again, because what you're doing might be totally different. You need to know all the new things that is relevant to what you're doing, right? So if you are renewal, that means there's no change in appointment. You go back to learning about, where you get the support, improve yourself, or even perhaps you might even go back to training and retrain again, or because training is a continuous thing, right? So while this is all happening, the most important thing here from this stage, the most important thing from this stage, induction, all the way until the end here, this is recognition. All right, recognition is very important, because then it only tells you that you are observing or you are paying attention to the person. Because if that person has not been recognized in any form, that means he has been ignored. All right, that means nobody knows he exists. And that would not be a very good feeling, right? Knowing that you don't exist. Okay, so this is how the life cycle of AIS works. All right, so basically you have the same 3 phases of recruitment, performance, and decision for the future, and it's broken up into this part, how you recruit. And then once you come in, the performance phase is basically all about how you operate, right? How you perform your duties. And then the decision of the future, whether you need to you continue what you're doing, or you need to reassign and retrain. Okay, so this is what we have. So we will go through individual quickly after this, because I already spoke to you about this. And then this is more on the life cycle of adult scouting. I hope you understand one of the things that people are confused in many NSOs, which a lot of question was raised, is what is the difference between AIS and training? A lot of people are confused. So let me try to explain to you. All right. Basically, training plays a very important part in AIS because it is in the area of development. It helps to develop the leaders, quality leaders. All right. So training is important, but that is all. It helps to train the leaders, mentor the leaders, and perhaps even give them the support they need to perform. But AIS is the overall, meaning like if you go to a company, right, the hiring is done by HR, right? The training is performed by another department. So it's all, you can see the difference there. The HR do not do the training, but the training also can recommend people to join for recruitment, or can recommend people, so that we can decide what to do in the future. But the HR is the one that manages it, right? More on the admin side. Okay, so there should not be a conflict between training and AIS, right? So if you can see, each has their own distinct responsibility, right? And it should not be working in silos. It has to be collaborated. Okay, so next, I will go through what is AIS, right? So basically, AIS is like we mentioned just now in the earlier, during the history of AIS, how we come about. AIS is a systematic approach, right, for supporting adults, right? So why is it systematic? We have the 3 phases. We start from the recruitment, and then the development and training, support, and then what happened to them after that, right? So the other thing is basically we work to improve the effectiveness and the commitment, motivation of the adult leadership. So it is proven in many big organizations or multinational companies that when the individual is trained, and they are very trained, they're very comfortable, and they are confident, they will want to stay longer in the company. If they are not trained, they are not engaged, they find that it's boring, they will look for something else. So that is one of the areas that we need to look at, right? The other thing is, so that programs, the youth program, can be better supported by leaders. Because why? The leaders are trained, they understand what is the program, and they understand their role, all right? And how to properly execute the program. So it's very crucial. So that is the systematic approach for AIS. So we went through recruitment just now, I explained. So I think most of you will probably understand a bit. So just go through, right? So recruitment is basically the process of hiring, right? Getting the right people on board. Not just anybody, but we must be quite selective, We are not so desperate, right? So sometimes you have the wrong person, it can spoil the whole organization. So you need to be careful, right? But of course, like I said, most important, you need to identify your needs, right? So what is the steps in recruitment? Assessment of needs, which I explained to you. You have to determine how many leaders you need based on the number of youth you have. That's manpower planning. The next thing is attraction and selection. Basically, when people today are different from what it was before. When you ask them to join, the first answer or the first question they will ask you is, what's in it for me? What do I get? Right? It's different from before when you say, hey, come join me, and say, yeah, I will join you. But today, especially the millennial generation, they ask you why, or they ask you, what do I get in return? So you need to define, how is what is good for them, why it will benefit them, and so that they will be attracted and join scouting. And all these have to have a mutual agreement. It's not a forceful thing. I'm very surprised to find out from certain other NSOs that some leaders are in a way being forced to join without their knowing. So they are being volunteered instead of they volunteer. Okay, so it would surprise me that there's such thing. But I thought that scouting is a volunteer and not being volunteered to do. So you have to be a mutual agreement, right? And of course, you need to determine what would be the best for this individual or this leader. What kind of leader? Is it Cub Scout, Scout, or even, if he's in IT, what he can help out in communication. So you need to find out what appointments suit the person best, right? Next, this is we touch on performance. So performance, like I told you, they're basically the main thing is about the carrying out the assignment or the appointment, all right? So for the good performance, there are a few elements that is very crucial. First, like I mentioned just now, induction. So induction, like for example, you want to be a Cub Scout leader, you have to be inducted in the Cub Scout section rather than you're inducted in another section and then you go to Cub Scout section. That is very confusing because the Rover and the Cub Scout does things very differently, right? So induction is very important. And of course, during induction, you meet all the same kind of people, so it's easy to interact. Next thing is the training system. All right, we have training system for a different appointment and different levels and different sections. So the training system is very important. Next thing is operation. Operation, I think what's most important is to understand the policies and the procedures, and also I think in most cases the protocols, right? All these have to be made known, and then also need to be pointed out where they can get help if they need to. In-service support is basically all the resources, right? Reading materials, all these resources are very important. Of course, every time when I attend a webinar, everybody will talk about money. Funding is essential, right? But there are other things besides funding that we need, right? Expertise, knowledge, that's one of few things, right? And the performance management, does performance management actually do? So it's basically, like I said, to let the person know if he's doing well, he should be recognized, he should be, we should celebrate. And then if he's not doing well, then we need to speak to him and help him to improve, all right? Because by we helping him to improve, it actually helps us because, we have a better leader to serve the NSOs, all right? So performance management is a continuous thing, right? It's not something you do one time and that's it, all right? So before I think it's like that. You've been reviewed at your recruitment stage, and then you're being assessed after you go for training, and they say, oh, you've done very well, good job, and that's it. After that, you're forgotten, all right? It should not be like that. So performance management has to be ongoing, has to be continuous. That means every year, or in fact, periodically, it should be engaged, all right? So that people can ask questions and to better themselves with it. So this is I cannot do this because we don't have a breakout session, but in the other session we did, what we do is we had a group work. So in the group work, what we do is we ask what do leaders want. Those of you I'm sure even if you are a commissioner, you are a leader once, you know what the leader wants, and so we need to understand their needs, all right? So the other thing is, what does the NSO desire? So what does the NSO want from a leader, right? and what do they require? What do they require the leaders to do? So sometimes we need to manage this, right? The leaders sometimes think that they are doing the right thing, and then why is it not appreciated, right? And sometimes NSOs get very fed up because they think that why is this leader always not listening to me? So it could be just as simple as a communication problem, right? So that is the purpose of this group work, but we couldn't do this, but perhaps at your own time, if you have a group of people, you can work on this, all right? So moving along, this is what we had. The most important thing in AIS is basically the performance, all right? It's important. Why the main purpose is performance? Because performance is important because it will help in your membership growth. A lot of time when I had this discussion with membership growth, a lot of NSOs or a lot of other people think that, oh, membership growth is all about recruitment, all about hiring. It's not that, all right? Performance is the key thing to membership growth. Why? Because you are working on retention, right? If you only focus on recruitment and not on performance, you will get people in from the front door. Imagine your front door, you have a door this big, all right? And then at the back, you have a door which is much bigger, all right? Because people are not being taken care of. People feel bad. So imagine you work so hard on recruitment, you're hiring 10 people, but 20 people are leaving. So performance is very important because performance, if you look at it, it covers induction, and then it's operation, which is all about scouting. Operation is actually managing the youth, all right? Your youth program. And then at the same time, it's the performance management, right? So performance, to me, is the main important in this adult and scouting. So that's where your training also comes under performance, right? But it's essential that it has to be, the three phases has to come together. You cannot just have performance, no recruitment. You cannot just have performance without the decision for the future, all right? So you need all these to be working in a motion that it will stay together. All right. Okay. Decision for future. We already know, but not many NSO is doing it because in some on the Asian or Southeast Asia, it's very sensitive. People do not like to be told if you are not doing the right thing, you get offended, you do feel good. But there are ways of letting people aware of how they can improve or can be better. And once they start to improve and they be better, I think they will appreciate you more and they will help give more towards the NSOs. All right. So the possible decision for the future basically is renewal. That means you continue what you're doing. That means you're doing a good job and you continue to gain more experience. All right. Because as you work on it, as you stay at the same position for a few years, you gain more experience. You know everything at the tip of your finger. The other thing is reassignment. Reassignment is two things. One is when the person cannot, I think it's not suitable for that person, right? So that person is not really comfortable to do that particular appointment or task, or even it can be both ways, or even the NSO feel that, oh, this is not the right person. So he can be reassigned to another appointment or position, all right? So not necessarily it's bad. The next thing is retirement. Okay. the retirement is very important because why? It has to do a lot with successor planning, right? I remember when I joined scouting in 1968 and I've been in scouting throughout. I remember we have trainers that took, when I took my highest award, you know, we have the trainer taking the test for us and he continued to take the test until 30 years later. And then what happened after when this person decided to retire after 30 years later? There's a big gap. There's a big gap because why? There was no people trained to do his job. All right. And so there was no successor. And if this is not looked into, there's no cycle, the organization is going to suffer. All right. So it's good to have a term of, service, for example. Like for example, right now, I think in most countries, NSO is the practice is a trainer can stay as a trainer forever. If you are a trainer, you are good, you can stay until you're 70, 80 years old, you still be a trainer. But there are certain positions that has a time limit. Like for example, as a chief commissioner, all right, my term is on a 4-year block. That means after the 4 years, I have to renew whether, you know, I will continue, right? So, and I have a maximum term. That means I have a maximum term of 10 years, right? Hopefully I don't have to serve 10 years because I should make way for younger people to take over. So if you have people that are always in training, all right, and then when you retire gracefully, you hand over to the young people and you become a legacy rather than you leave and everything become chaos, right? So that's not very good. So I think we have to get this understanding that it's not about you not being good or the young people wants to take over. No, but it's about sustainability of the organization. All right. So I hope I have made it clear. So the decision of the future enable good HR management. So this is where, like I told you in the beginning, in every company there's human resource. So it is important that there is a department or person who oversees this management of people, all right? So that is the people, you know who you have, who they are, and they will stay longer, all right? So that they can commit more for the NSO as well. Now in recognition, I think everybody likes to be recognized. I mean, everybody likes a tap on the shoulder and say, you know, somebody come to you, tap on the shoulder and says, well done, good job, you know. You feel good, right? Of course, sometimes you get other form of reward. It can be promotion, can be some medals, can be any kind of recognition. But like I say, recognition don't have to wait so long. What I did when I took over as Chief Commissioner in Singapore is before you give assignments, and it's a long assignment, I mean that person will have to wait for 1 year or maybe more before he'll be recognized. Now I think we changed that. So we review periodically and we always recognize the people on the progress. Not necessarily wait until the end of it, because by then it's too long. Sometimes people do not want to wait 3 years to be recognized, and they say it's okay, I'm leaving, right? So, but if you engage them every 6 months or so, and then you find that they are progressing, we have milestones or KPI, and if they meet the KPI or they meet the milestone, they've done a good job, they should be rewarded or recognized. All right. So that's what we did. So recognize can come in many forms, and it can come as simple as just talking to the person and appreciating what is done. Like even a simple thank you is very important. So like I said, recognition is critical, right? And I think it's just a good practice among ourselves as leaders, especially senior leaders, that we really engage and we really know our people, right? Rather than you just remember the person, barely know the person because, he's a scout. Yeah, he's a scout, but you don't know who he is. You don't know his name and you don't know what he's doing or what he's done. All right. So recognition is very good for retention in the membership growth. Right. So if you are a membership growth person, then you better go around and start recognizing people. Okay. Next, we come to retention strategy. We can't do this because we cannot break out we don't have a breakout group, but we still can discuss among ourselves. So to increase the retention for adults, there's one important thing that we need to have, all right? I think I do not know, but I just share with you what I do in Singapore. We work on the 4 pillars, all right? We have our platform, our solid base, which is the Scout method, right? So everything we do is based on the Scout method, governed by the Scout promise and law. And what are the 4 pillars? The 4 pillars we have, number 1 is communication, right? We need to have good communication and not communication top down all the time. Communication should be both ways, top down, up top, right? So communication is a key thing because communication sometimes, especially in today's world, is very sensitive. It can offend people. So open communication is very important. The second pillar we have is collaboration. In scouting, we always talk about teamwork, team building, and patrol system. So that's where collaboration comes in, all right? You don't have to be shy to ask for help or to work together, because I think it's very important as scouts that we need to collaborate. Right? For example, communication, have to collaborate with membership growth because why? Membership growth need to disseminate information, need to do posters, need to do a lot of recruitment things. So you need help communication, right? I'm not saying you can't do it on your own, but if you collaborate, it will be better because communication department has the skill set and perhaps also have the resources to do it. And also you need to work with program and training. Why? Because you need to highlight what are the what attract the youth to join scouting. All right, because a lot of time we always say the same thing over and over again. Join scouting, very adventure, right? But what's the adventure, right? And then the scout comes in after 1 year, no adventure. And what do? They leave, right? So you need to work out with program. What are the things that really will help to keep the youth to stay, right? What are the good programs? What are the interesting programs? We have a lot of international program today where kids are already doing it on their own. We have SDGs, the Better World Framework, right? Things like that. And we also need to work with the training department, right? Because training need to help to train the leaders, because by training the leaders, they become more confident, they become more competent, and it makes their life easy because maybe when they started, it take them maybe 10 hours to do a job. But after being trained and after the experience they had for 1 year, they only take maybe 1 hour to do that job or maybe less. So you see, collaboration is very important. We cannot work in silos. So that's the second pillar that I introduced or we practice in Singapore. The third pillar is trust, right? Is trust. We have to trust one another, right? Because if we don't trust one another, we cannot move. Because we are a movement, we need to move. I give you an example. I hear a lot of senior trainers and senior leaders telling me, oh, that guy, Mano, cannot do. He's not ready. But what is it he's not ready? Right? No. But he's already been a scouter for 8 years. No, he cannot do. So you are not giving him a chance to prove himself, and he will not be better. So trust and confidence is the most important thing in scouting. We need to trust one another, and we need to have confidence. All right? Even with the boys, because today it come to a point whereby every little thing we won't let the boys do, because why? We are afraid that he will injure himself or he'll be very careless, right? So then you should ask yourself, what is scouting? Scouting is supposed to help develop that self-confidence in that child. So how do you do it? So if there's no trust and confidence, it's very difficult, all right? So that's the third pillar. And the last pillar we have is we need to have a proper process management, all right? I give you an example. If whatever you have in mind, your objective is properly planned, all right, you have a good policy, you have a good procedure, and then when you implement it, people understand, it will work very well, right? But if you don't have a proper process management, everything is by ad hoc, everything is not consistent. People do not know where to get the resources, where to find the information. That will be chaos, right? So that needs to be done. So this is part of the retention strategy, which I'm saying we need to have all this in the organization. I think these 4 pillars is important because it will then support whatever vision, mission that you have. Okay. So like I mentioned just now, the NSO should respond clearly, right, towards this. So every NSO has their own challenges. So you need to be able to define them. For us, I shared with you what we had done for Singapore Scouts. So basically, like I said, adult and scouting covers the entire process, right, of attracting people to come in, not only the leaders, even you can say the scouts also, right? It support the leaders and also develop them. And of course, you need to have good leaders, competent and effective leaders, so that the young people can benefit from it, right? Because if the leaders are not trained, the youth will be taught the wrong thing or will be shown the wrong thing to do. So I don't think that is fair to the boys and girls. Okay, so I hope I've covered the life cycle of adult and scouting. I know I'm talking too fast because I don't want to waste too much time. We're already halfway through our slide, right? We only have a bit halfway more to go. All right. So now we're gonna go to the second phase. Okay. So because we have 3 learning outcomes, I've just completed 1. All right. So we're gonna go to the second phase. All right. The next thing what I like you to do to explain to you is the relationship between program and training and what happens in the center. All right. So there has always been a conflict before. Before there's a conflict between AIS and program, there was a conflict between program and training, and like who is supposed to take charge of what, right? So I think I cannot help you much in this, but I can try to help you explain, all right, how we overcome it in our side. I think whatever the leader does is very important because our vision, mission is very clear. We are here to develop young people, all right? So the program is very important because, like I told you in one of the World Scout Conference, all right, it's already in the constitution that we are in the business of developing young people. So we have a youth program policy, all right? But the youth, even though it's youth-led, but they need guidance, good, proper guidance from adults. So who are they? They are the adults, and the training is the one that help to prepare these adults to be skilled, right, and competent. All right, so you have the program and the training. So who are the people that actually going to execute the program, right? Even though it's a youth-led, they have the leaders, but the leaders need to understand the program in order to implement or to carry out the program itself. So that is very important, the relationship. Now, I want to explain to you why I brought this up for your understanding. Because AIS has 3 strategic areas, all right? So these 3 strategic areas will constitute to the effective running of the NSO, right? So you have the youth program, you have adult and scouting, and you have the whole organizational development, right? So it's important that we understand why AIS exists. AIS help to bridge or put together all these 3, all right? So what is the outcome or the strategic outcome of AIS? I think most of you are here because of this, because it helped to increase membership. It helps in the growth. It helped to increase not only membership, but it helped to increase competency. It helped to increase better leadership and, you know, better citizens from the young people, or rather even for us to be young, good citizens. So that's important. The next thing is AIS help to manage, all right? So as you know, we have the 3 phases, is very strategic approach. So it's a form of a framework to manage. And of course, why we have AIS and why we're doing it is because we need to improve. We need to improve the service to the young people because we owe them good leadership or effective leadership, all right? We have to motivate. In order to do that, we need to motivate the adults. If the adults are not motivated, the kids will suffer or the youth will suffer, right? I think it's very logic thinking. Of course, if this is done properly and, you know, they have good leaders and good youth, it only improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the NSO. That's very clear. And of course, I think end of the day, all of us are here. We are back as scouts because why? We believe that scouting has done good for us, and it's a way. And in terms of social well-being, I know my success story. Scouting has contributed to my career and some of things that I've done successfully. So besides that, also the well-being of the person, right? Like the old saying, scouting makes you feel young or makes you young, stay young, all right? Oh, we can't do the group work again because we cannot break into our breakout group. But anyway, that was group work. So we passed that. The next thing is, I think by now, it's very clear what are the advantages of AIS. You know that, you know, there's satisfaction on the person conducting and the person who are, so you have satisfaction from a job well done from both sides, all right? The other thing is like personal growth and learning, right? Of course, there is a worthy cause that you are, and of course, undertaking purposeful life, you know, we understand. All this will be falls under the part of the performance, you know, where you have your development training, and also when you are doing your assignment, you gain the experience. You will get all this from the experience. All right. This is basically the characteristic of AIS. I'm not going to go through all. I think we have discussed about it just now. but I just let you read on the screen because you've been hearing my voice for a while. So I will pause for a little while and let you read for maybe 3 minutes before I will continue on the next slide. 3 minutes. You can read now. Okay, I'm back after 3 minutes. Okay, so I think a lot of it is very clear cut, very straightforward. I just want to touch on a few. One of the thing is specific terms of office. I think a lot of people disagree with it, but like I mentioned just now, this is very important for the sustainability of the NSO because you need rotation, you need you need people to come and take over so that the organization will continue to move. All right, so that's one. If a lot of people, I know it's nice to stay at one position for a long time, but you have to make room for other people. All right, so the rest I think is very straightforward. The other thing which I would like to mention is AIS is just it's a framework. The policy is supposed to be flexible, right? So you have to decide on what is best for your NSO, all right? So that's very important. So if you, we first started at our icebreaker, I asked you who are your AIS commissioner and all that. I think those, if you do not have one, then you need to set a team because the AIS policy is something which is very crucial because in every company there is a human resource to manage all this, and we are in a people business, so we need to have people to look after the people. All right. Okay, so we go on to the next slide. There are many references that you can find on the WOSM website, right, in the library. But I think this is a few things which I would recommend you for reading if you have not done so. This is the Adult and Scouting that the latest revised in 2018. This is quite old, the World Adult Resource Handbook, but I think it is one of the most useful handbook that I have ever read. In fact, I still use it today for myself and make reference to it for many things. It's a very good handbook. If you have not gone through it, I recommend you go through it, all right? This is the latest one, right? I think it'd be interesting to read something which is quite new. Okay, so I've almost come to the end of my presentation. So we'll now come to the question and answers. Okay, so how are we going to do this? I cannot see your chat. I cannot see your chat group. Your chat.
Madhu, could you help?
Yeah. Now it is time for the question answers. Friends, any questions you have, you can go at the Q&A button at the bottom. Yeah. Click on the Q&A button and you can ask your questions, and Anton will try to respond to your questions. So we'll give you 2 minutes time so that you can go up there and ask your questions. If somebody would say that we want to speak, we'll give opportunity for 5 people to speak. You can raise your hands so that we can allow you and give access for you to speak to our resource person, and you can ask your question there. Otherwise, the best way is to type your question on the Q&A button and we will be there.
I think I have one first question here.
Yes.
It's been there for a while. Okay, the course that you took on the WOSM website is not set by me. That is a WOSM platform. It doesn't come with a signature, but if you can see that there is a form of encryption there, so it's not like everybody can get. You should keep it because I think there is a number or something that will reflect to you. Right, that's what I know, but I'm not too sure. Maybe Carol can help me on this. Carol, are you there?
Yes, boss.
Yeah.
We will get it checked po with the Scout.org platform and then get back to the participants. The participants can coordinate with Madhu. So Madhu and I will coordinate on
Okay.
this about.
Thank you, Carol.
Can I supplement to both of you?
Yes, please.
Yep. The online and e-learning courses that we have on scout.org, once you complete your e-learning, you'll be able to download that certificate. And this certificate comes with an encryption, as our chief rightly said. So you will not have authorized signatories on that certificate. So please do understand, the certificate come as a recognition for you that you have the understanding of the subject and topics on it. So that is a certificate which is good enough without a signature on it. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a certificate from WOSM, you know.
Yes,
and it's a recognition that you accomplished something. So well done. Any other questions?
There is one question coming from on the chat.
Okay.
Can anybody completely compel to retire anybody without lack of his performance? I think I will reframe it.
Yeah.
Can you compel an individual to retire when his performance is good?
Well, that's a very tough question. But like I said, sometimes you have to make certain decision. If that person is performing very well, all right, it depends on which area. If he's in the training team, then it's no problem, because training team, you will stay in the training team for a long time. But if he's holding other appointments, like for example, a chief commissioner, he's a very good chief commissioner, but his term is finished after 10 years. As part of governance, he has to retire. It's just like when you are in a workforce, a civil servant, you have to retire at a certain age, even though you are a very, very good worker, a good performer, but it's in compliance of the governance that you need to retire by a certain age. Some company 55, some country 55, some country 60, some country 65, but that's the maximum, right? So it's the same with scouting, I think. But then again, there are other roles that you can do. You can be advisor, you can be a mentor, right? But you need somebody else to take on the responsibility, and you can be stay behind to guide. And I'm sure with your wisdom, people will still come to you for advice. I'm not sure whether I answered that question.
Thank you. We have one more question. Please suggest some motivation ways for adults. Best ways according to you.
Well, honestly, it's very difficult to please everybody. But I can tell you a few things that can be done. One of the common thing that I used to do, or my training team used to do, is we used to meet a lot. Like for example, maybe twice a month, we will meet before a discussion or a meeting. What I observed today, if we have a meeting at 9 o'clock, everybody walks in at 9 or 9:10. Last time, when the meeting started at 9, we will be there at 8 o'clock. And then we will sit down, and then we will ask each other, hey, how are you? How's your family? It's common thing, and we sharing interests. I think that is in some way, is a motivation thing which is not visible. But people are inspired and they will come back for it more. because they enjoy themselves. I think motivation is not just giving a tap on the shoulder and say thank you, but also to make the person feel, welcome, and that he's being accepted and being recognized in that sense. So to me, until today, is the same thing. I will always come early for meeting and talk to all my leaders and commissioners, and we just share. I think that's very important. That's one of the things I do. Thanks.
Yeah, we have the next question. It says, how can we implement effectively adults in scouting?
Okay. There is one way that we can implement. I think you cannot depend on one person or one department. In an organization like Bharat Scouts and Guides, it's very huge. So you need to divide and conquer. So it's just like how you do for MOP and all. You need to subdivide to all the small. That means you need to have more training teams. You need to have more AIS trained people to understand and then disseminate. So scouting is all about small groups. It's not something you send on the internet, or you send a circular out and expect everybody to read and understand, right? AIS is also, in a way, you need to practice it. So it's not something you can implement and get a result in tomorrow or maybe 1-2 years. This is something you need to work on, and you see the fruit much later. That's my answer. I hope it answered your question.
Yeah, that is very well answered.
Yeah.
We have one more question coming, which says, how can we blend performance and voluntary service?
How come I get all the difficult questions today? Okay, that's a very good question for Mr. Basa Vajaraja, is it?
Baswaraj, yeah.
Baswaraj has a very good question. Okay, I think what's the most important thing is you have to, if you are talking about yourself, performance and voluntary, you have to enjoy what you do. It's just like when you tell the boys and girls, you have to enjoy what you do. You have to enjoy studying, you have to enjoy scouting, you have to enjoy all this, right? Even work, you have to enjoy what you're doing. So if you don't enjoy it, it's very difficult, because if you enjoy the time that you volunteer, the time that you commit yourself, you don't feel it. It doesn't cost anything. But if you don't enjoy, all right, then you will be like, it's a waste of time. And then you measure your time, and your time will become very expensive. All right. So performance is all you. It's all about the individual. Right. I think it's not like in the workplace, or it's not in the school. When you measure performance, means you score 100%. Right. In scouting, performance can be as simple as being present. All right. Being present for certain activities. That could be just but it has to be appreciated that you show up. So that's why I said in scouting or in AIS, that person who give the compliment or give the recognition, you show up and participate. That is really a commitment, because you are been sacrificing time away from your family or away from something that you should be doing on that time. So I think to me, to get to the balance of performance satisfaction, is not so much on how much you do, but you have to be appreciated just by making an attempt and trying. And that is very important.
Thank you, Chief. I'll just like to add something to this. Like Bharat Scouts and Guides and scouting, it's very old. It's more than 100 years old.
Yes.
That's when the adults in scouting, the three parts, what the Chief explained, comes in very handy for us. Recruitment, performance, decision for future. The movement has always suffered in the past few decades only because they were not able to decide for the future. That is where the movement is stagnant. AIS comes in handy wherein we have to take a decision for future. For example, we may have a voluntary leader who is stuck in a particular position for more than a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades and not delivering. But we don't have a way to tell them that you have to leave. So that's where we have to blend the volunteerism and also the AIS in system. That's where the connect comes from the first part where our chief started the presentation with a couple of questions, which very clearly tells the role of the training commissioner is different and adults in scouting is different. There comes the role of this HR manager who can really implement, sit with this person and talk to them, tell them and do a performance appraisal and come to the phase reassign, retire or renew. That's where it works. Thank you for that.
Okay, I just, on that note, I just like to add something. This is from my personal experience. Sometimes when you stay in that position, even though you think you are good, for a very, very long time, you create this thing which is termed or called blindness. Because you do it so often that you will cut corners without even knowing, because it's a norm, all right? So that is a danger also. So in a way, if you rotate, it's good, because if you stay at one place too long, it might not be good, because that means you are not progressing, all right? So you notice that when there is a change in command or change in person, that person is full of energy, and always wanting to try something or mix something new. So I think that in a way could be good for the organization. It's how you look at it, actually. So I'm not saying anybody's right or anybody's wrong. I'm just sharing something. Any more questions?
We have one question which says, we missed the first few slides. Can we see the slides, especially the history of training?
Which one? Okay, I will be sharing my presentation to Brother Madhu. All right, you can have a look at it. And if you have any question, ask Madhu.
We will share the presentation and the recording of this webinar to you all. So you will get all this information.
The one hand of Kennedy, whether Kennedy is likely to speak. You can ask.
Yeah, I will allow Kennedy sir to speak. Kennedy sir, you can speak now. You can unmute and ask your question. Kennedy sir, you can speak. You can unmute and speak. I think that was by mistake. Okay.
I think there's a question by Dr. Paul Singh. Right, his question is how to address challenges in recognition and retention in a local association. I can't really tell you how, but I can share with you what we did in our site. It's something that has to be agreed and practiced by all. But again, it all had to start with one person. I mean, I've seen in many in my area or region, there's some areas which is do not really practice. It's a culture in that region where they don't really practice good morning. They don't really practice hi, and then you see the young people, when they see senior commissioners, they will run away or hide, right? I do not know why, but I think now it has changed because the person high up, the highest in that region, I spoke to him and he realized, oh, I didn't see it, you know. So now he is sharing it with his downline by greeting everybody, saying hi and stop. And when they stop to ask, how are you, it's genuine. And then once it become a culture, become a habit, it starts small. but now it has improved tremendously, and you can see that people are enjoying it. So there's no hard and fast rule to manage this. It's not cast in stone. But you have to exercise, like I said, flexibility and all in that. I need to know, or you need to know that particular region or as true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My
Chief, we have
screen is
one more
missing.
interesting question.
My screen is missing. I have not finished yet.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Can I go back to my
Yeah,
screen?
you can go back to your screen.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so another question?
Yes,
Is it?
It's a one more interesting question.
Oh, why? Okay, what is the scope for self-realization of one's performance in adult and scouting? Is retiring, renewal, reassignment done only by others than self? That's a very good question. In fact, I think, thank you for bringing this up. In most countries like Australia, Singapore, even Hong Kong, I don't know about the rest, but I know about these three. What we do at the management part, performance management, is like we have two evaluation. So we have the individual to self-evaluate, and then we have the direct person who is in charge or the mentor to do evaluation. And in fact, in Singapore, we also have peer evaluation, right? But I want to caution you about peer evaluation, because peer evaluation sometimes can lead to a lot of unhappiness if it's not done properly. But the other two, about self-evaluation and evaluation by the direct charge, is important, because then you can put it side by side and then compare, right? There's no right and wrong, because you need to see from two sides of the coin, all right? Why that person say I'm good, and why this person, why the mentor say is not good. So then from there, you can come to compromise. And let me tell you, there are many times where the individual is correct because the direct charge is too busy or have too many to look at the oversight. All right, and most of the time when it comes to this kind of evaluation, the direct charge will always remember the last month or the last 3 months, whereby the individual will remember incident that started 12 months ago. So you need to have the balance. That was a very good question. I hope I answer your question. Thank you.
Yes, Chief, you answered that question. I'll just want to give our friends one more very recent example.
Yeah.
Friends, we are all in a very difficult situation of COVID-19, and we have heard about jobs being laid down, people being removed from their companies, and there's be a pay cut also up to 25% or something. This is where, like always said, the self-realization or self-appraisal. There were many people who went to their bosses and said, yes, boss, I have not been performing well. Don't throw me out of the job. Keep me for 10% salary. This is called as self-realization. It should not come during the time of emergency or crisis.
Yeah.
When it comes when we are doing well and we realize, okay, this is the right time for us to move away from the position when we are performing at the peak. This is what self-realization is all about, and self-evaluation comes in picture there. Time to think for many of us who are holding position for quite some time, and to see what to do with the self-realization and things like that. We have the next question, Chief.
Okay. All right, next question by Nagesh. Performance appraisal is based on adult training or on the boys program side? There is a standard guideline or appraisal form that is, I don't know, you might want to do it for your own NSO. Basically, it's both, because you are appraised as a leader to help deliver the youth program, right? So if you are not delivering the youth program properly, that means something is not right. You can be a very good, popular leader, but you are not delivering the program, then you are not a very effective leader for that particular area, you know. So like I said, if you look at the AIS, we have all the different areas. We don't discourage people who are interested in IT to come in to do IT and force him to do something else. All right. So that's why AIS is very flexible at the phase 1, right? And we are all about, we're in the business of developing young people. So whatever we do have to benefit the young people. So if you ask me, the evaluation should be based on both, because end of the day, we want to see the youth turning out to be very good citizens.
I think no more questions, Chief.
Okay.
I think we can move ahead.
All right, so I shall just summarize, do my summation for my presentation. Okay, so we want to go back, where we started just now to see whether we have achieved what we set out to do here tonight. All right, so this is what we wanted to achieve in our learning outcome. I think we have completed that. I have explained to you the AIS Life policy in a quiz, the history and also how it works, all right? And this part, importance to keep the adults, particular volunteers, active and committed. I think this is important because this falls under the retention, all right? So under the performance part, but even the before performance at the first phase of the recruitment, if you hire the right people and they're happy to do the right thing, you give them the right appointment, they will be committed, they will do more for your NSO, that will help the retention and help on the membership growth, right? And the last part is, right, the most important ingredient contributing to growth, we have, during the question answers, I think there's a lot of things that are brought up there, all right? But I think the most important thing is, like I said, is about the youth, the people feeling happy volunteering in scouting. The only way they can do that is they have to know what they're doing. They have to be very confident in what they do, and they must get satisfaction out of it. And the satisfaction can be made known to them through the recognition part. All right, I think that's important. So that's ends my session. All right. So like I said, true leaders don't, like BP says, true leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. So that's why we are here, and that's what AIS is all about. So yes, with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief. And now I request Mr. Param for any of the comments from his side. Param.
Thank you, Madhu. I think it was a very informative and knowledgeable and interesting session. A lot of questions, interesting questions came out of it. Yeah, and I think Mr. Anton did a good job answering them all. And I just want to highlight that good quality AIS will create quality leaders, which in return will give you quality scouting and give you good, more growth in a sense. So not only in quantity, but also in quality. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Param. We have our Chairman of Membership Growth Committee, Mr. PGR Sindhya, here. He has been following this webinar right from the beginning. I request few words from Sir now. Sindhya, sir.
It was an excellent narration. I congratulate the Honorable Speaker. It was really good. I think most of his suggestions, as far as the adult in scouting is concerned, that is very relevant to Indian context. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
And I think he has prepared the whole presentation keeping India in his mind. That is what I feel. Because in India, it's a very complicated society as such.
Yes.
And it's a huge country. with 130 crores of people in this country and more than 40 crores of youngsters who are eligible to become the members of the Scouts and Guides. It is even a small thing to bring in a change is not that easy.
Yes.
As you are rightly, you are the best physician, I should say, for the diseases of the Indian Scouting. And whosoever is there from the India side, whether it is Krishna Swami or Madhusudan or Basuraj and many of our state level coordinators, we are all one with you. One with you. I agree with the management system which you have suggested. I promise you, I will not leave any stone unturned to implement that policy. I am grateful to Mr. Param also for being present, and you have been very candid. You have been very candid. Thank you, Madhu. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. You are the chairman of the Singapore Scouting.
No, sir. He is the Chief Commissioner of Singapore Scouts.
Chief, very big man. I have come to Singapore many times. I have come. How is the pandemic there?
Oh, I see, I see. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Krishna Swami sir for his final comments.
On behalf of the Chief Commissioner of Bharat Scouts and Guides and Chairman Membership Growth Committee, first of all, we would like to thank Brother Antang for the very ticklish subject. The word retirement has made so much of reactions from the listeners. But nobody thought of the first part, what is the recruitment. So that is where we think, as you said, to keep the chain unbroken,
Yes.
every adult leader in the movement has to see that there is a succession plan, and that is where the retirement comes.
Yes.
So, as a life cycle, we need to look into bring in more leaders. The time when it becomes mature for them to take up responsibilities, the others should slowly move from their main responsibilities and become advisors.
Yes.
The traditional system of family very clearly indicates at a certain time the family responsibilities are vested on the second generation youth, and the parents get into a role of a saint and advise them when they go wrong only. So this is the same role every adult will have to perform in an organization. For that, all the three stages are very important. Our presenter has very clearly told the training of an adult in an organization and its integration is to support the young people. Any evaluation that happens of an adult is to support the young people, though the evaluation gives an opportunity to the association to realign the responsibility of an adult with the objectives or the target of the association. Nobody should take the word reassignment or retirement in a negative context.
Yes. Yes.
This should be taken in a very positive context, because by the time we grow, we get certain physical troubles which we not be able to perform some roles which we played in the past. You may be a very good cup master at the age of 18 to 35. You will be doing the somersault. But when you become 35, you may retire from the role of a akela and to become a role of a trainer or an assistant trainer to create more, where you can tell how you run a unit, how you run a pack, so that they learn. So retiring from the job of a unit leader or becoming a local association secretary or an organizer or a badge examiner should not make you feel that you are out. You are in a new role according to your experiences So every one of us in the organization should think of it. The second part of it, volunteerism and evaluation. We always get mixed with two things. One is we feel like we are evaluating individuals. We never evaluate the individual as such. We evaluate the job role that a person has played and the outputs that is coming from how he performed that role. So, whenever you evaluate, as our presenter has told, don't make it personal. Create some formats through which both the evaluator and the person being evaluated evaluate something beyond both of them. They evaluate a job role, a secretary, a trainer, or a chief commissioner. And how the third question was how in local association recognitions are coming and how to retain people. We have a big system of committees. We have so many roles to play in the Scout Association. Each one of us should go to the rules and PORs, what in India we call as APRO, where we have a number of rules. Everybody, every adult in the community is important for scouting, and we don't want to lose anybody. So let's all work together, remembering that recruitment and training is basically to retain people within the organization. The word retires refers to when we are not able to perform a particular role. This is to retire from that. The trainers, those who are asking when to retire, how to retire, my request to them every 4 years, when you are filling up your performance appraisal by yourself, just ask yourself, if I go back to the training center, do I need somebody else to help me to walk? Do I need somebody to bring me hot water in the morning? If I can do everything by myself and I can play a game of Mowgli or help my patrol to build a pioneering project, you are always there, irrespective of your age. You are active as a trainer. At any age, when you feel like you are not able to support your patrol in a training program, that is the time you decide to retire as a trainer. So this was a very wonderful day for all of us. And maybe if you have some difficulties, as Chief has told, I'm a little fast in speaking. Please don't worry. He is sharing his presentation with us. And all of us in the organization, we know that adults are more important to support young people. We thank you for being with us on a working day, sparing your time, delayed dinner or supper. So we thank you, Brother Antang. We look forward once the COVID is over, we all come together to a place to see that the growth is happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're muted.
Thank you very much, everybody. Now it's very clear to each one of us. While we draft our growth plans for the respective states, let us ensure in the part of adults in scouting that we should prepare a adults in scouting policy for our own state associations so that we can move forward. And the last webinar for in this series is tomorrow. As you leave this meeting, you'll find the registration and landing page for the next webinar. Kindly register yourself. Tomorrow we are going to have our exciting speakers, Annie, Luz, and Roger, who will be talking to you about the partnerships. Thank you one and all. Thank you, Chief, for your presence. Thank you all for being good listeners. And see you all tomorrow at 5. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
I request all the participants to kindly press the leave button and leave this meeting, as we are going to continue our discussions on this same ID. I also thank Brother Edward and Brother Wang, and also we have few friends from Singapore and Taiwan. Thank you very much for being with us. May I request all the participants to kindly press the leave button and leave this meeting? Kevin, is this person joining us now?
I'm not sure. He is still in the meeting, so I don't think he will be able to join us soon.
Madhu, Prasannaji may be in a unit, so meeting, so you may not be there.
Okay, now the participants have left.
Madhu, this presentation sharing, we have to once see that done.
I will do it, sir.
Then regarding tomorrow, we will just check what is the final availability of these reports coming to us. Then only we will be able to share with Prasannaji, Param, and all the presentations. Because now I think in certain parts, the climatic conditions are getting worse. So
Yes,
they are
sir.
not able to share the reports. And now they are a little shaky because they are not that easy. That now they understand that it's a revised plan means they should have all these ingredients, but now they are learning. So we will give a little time.
Yes, sir.
We will discuss with Prasannaji and then get back to that.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea, sir, because just now they have understood the adults in scouting. When we look at it, there were good questions coming today compared to the other.
Yep, true. Today's questions are very strong questions compared to the other four sessions.
Yes. Param, do you think it's a good idea to extend the deadline by another 5 days or so?
I did propose this to Mr. Prasanna 4 days ago that probably we should extend the completion date of the presentation, the strategies after all the webinars. But we are saying, let it be, let's not give them the extension. If you give the extension, they're going to extend it further. So let's stick with the date and probably let them revise it or something after that.
Yeah.
No, that is the strategy. Otherwise, Param sir, Prasanna knows the local trends, no?
Exactly.
Once you give another date, no, they will be all aloof. So,
True.
let them be busy on that now. Whatever came to us for